They told me that my daughter has a fatal condition called PPHN. The success rate of someone surviving this by the age of 2 is very, very slim. It is an 80 to 90% mortality rate. As a pediatric chiropractor, I was like, I've got to get my hands on her. I'm Dr. Savy, and this is my birth story. So at 36 weeks, Emery, my daughter, went into a transverse position. And being a pediatric and prenatal chiropractor, I did what I know how to help moms with, and really opening up that pelvis, creating more room so that baby can go down into that head down position. So I would get adjusted, she would move head down, and then she moved back. At 37 weeks, I knew that the best outcomes were going to be with the ECV earlier on. So external cephalic version, right? A manual assisted procedure to get her to go into a head down position that the OB performs. So I had texted my OB and I said, hey, can we go ahead and schedule this? And she said, well, we usually don't do this till 39 weeks. And I said, but the research shows that we have higher success outcomes when we do it earlier. She's fully grown. Can we do this as soon as possible? Something just feels off. And I was really just trusting my mom gut on this one. And she said, all right, we'll get this scheduled for you. Now, this is 2020. Of course, with the pandemic, birth was a whole different story in and of itself. We went to the triage unit. My husband wasn't allowed up. And so I went into triage and they hooked me up to a monitor, something called a biophysical profiler, BPP, essentially a longer ultrasound to see what position she was in, and then also just to confirm what was going on. Well, I saw the look in the OB's eyes and I was like, what's happening? And she said, we're just gonna give you a little sugar and then we're gonna recheck. We're just trying to wake baby up a little bit. She might be sleeping. And I said, okay, and so we did it a little bit longer. We monitored for about 20 minutes. And finally, I said, what's going on? She's like, we're not detecting any fetal movement or any fetal heartbeat right now. She said, we have to rush you in for an emergency C-section. At that point, I said, well, can I call my husband? Can he come in? And she said, yeah. So he came from the car. I was rushed into the OR and immediately operated on. At this point, after she comes out, as a mom, all I wanted was skin-to-skin contact. And when she came out, she was completely blue. She wasn't breathing. There was no oxygen going to her brain. The cord was wrapped twice around her neck and once around her abdomen. And her APGAR score was a 1. So anybody that understands APGAR scores, that is the lowest score that a baby can score. They immediately resuscitated her. And then she still wasn't breathing on her own, so they immediately took her up to the NICU. I wasn't allowed up to the NICU for a while. In fact, it was 4 hours until I saw my little girl. Finally, I was able to come up. My husband wasn't allowed in there because it was 2020, so one person in, one person out. They told me that my daughter has a fatal condition called PPHN, so persistent pulmonary hypertension. And the success rate of someone surviving this by the age of 2 is very, very slim. It is an 80 to 90% mortality rate. As a mom, I wanted to do everything I could to help my sweet girl. I think as parents, that's what we want to do. And as a doctor, I know how traumatic birth can be. I mean, even in a vaginal delivery, they're using upwards of 60 to 90 pounds of pressure to pull baby out. With the C-section delivery, that can go upwards of 120 pounds of pressure. And they're using that C1 area as a lever to pull baby out. It's not just this gentle glide, it's a pull and twist. You add that on top of the cord wrapped. I mean, how much tension was right on that brainstem area. And that's what's controlling her being able to get oxygen to the brain. It's also right where that vagus nerve exits that is controlling so much. It's controlling sleep, digestion, relaxation, growth and development, immune function, all these good physiological functions, right? What do babies need to do? Eat, sleep, poop, grow, be healthy, all of these things. But it's also controlling that cardiopulmonary function too. So that vagus nerve goes down into the heart and lungs too to control that. So I knew as a pediatric chiropractor, I'm like, I have to get my hands on her. We see a subluxation at that C1 area in 90% of babies after the birth process. So I had no doubt that she was gonna have that, and she did. So I immediately got my hands on her and felt this insane bulge right at that C1 area. No wonder she couldn't breathe on her own. I immediately adjusted her, and within a few minutes, her oxygen level started to regulate. Within a couple days, she was able to get off the ventilator. After a couple weeks, she was able to get out of the NICU. And the doctor said, we've never seen any kid respond like this. In fact, we never do this, but we can confidently say that this diagnosis was transient and that she doesn't have this anymore. Now Emery's 4 years old. Statistically speaking, she shouldn't have lived past her second birthday. And she is just the happiest and the healthiest kid around. In fact, when we look at our other kids and they're getting sick all the time, she never has these problems. And the only difference was, whether it was in the NICU or now, is that she had chiropractic care and she had it from the start. Her nervous system was able to function in a way that others weren't, which gave her every opportunity to succeed and thrive.
Oh, my girl.